I think we still are missing a few. Fred, you go. Good. Here they all come. Right on cue. Well, good afternoon. As Blake mentioned, I'm Brent Christensen. I'm the Executive Director of the Mississippi Development Authority. And we've got a couple of challenges up here with this group this afternoon. So the first one is that we're following Rudy Giuliani. So nobody wants that task of following Mayor Giuliani. But I promise you, we've got a heck of a group assembled up here who's going to keep your attention, keep you engaged, and really advance our discussion here today. So you all have a big challenge. I know you're up to it, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. The second is we're behind. We are at almost 1:50 now, so we're a little bit behind in terms of time. It always annoys me when I get on an airplane and we're late and the pilot says, well, we're just going to make up time in the air, right? Well, how do you just make up time in the air? Well, I think we're going to experiment a little bit with that today. We're going to make up time in the air. And one of the ways we're going to do that, and Patrick has already done away with our break in the morning, just standing up. You're going to have self-managed breaks this afternoon, I think, to make sure that we stay on time. So if you feel like you've got to get up and use the restroom, you got to go up and get some water, that sort of thing, by all means do that. Self-manage your breaks. But we've got a great panel. I want to make sure I give them enough time to do each one of their presentations. I think does each one of you have a PowerPoint presentation? So the way we agreed to do this was, hopefully we'll have some time for some discussion afterwards. I'm going to have to watch the clock a little bit. But we're going to have each one of them come to the podium and do their presentation. This was a little odd doing a presentation from a sitting position in a chair. And one of the things I will also do is I will do away with reading each one of their bios. If you have one of these, you can read about our panelists, and we'll hopefully make up some time there as well. So first off, we have, and I'm going to go by the way it's in your program, we have Fred Cannon, who's President and CEO of Kior. So Fred, we're going to let you bat first today on this. We'll let you lead off, and I appreciate you being here. Please give Fred a warm welcome.
Thank you very much. It's really exciting to be here. To see this interest in the energy industry. And Governor, I thank you for my invitation, and it's really a pleasure to be here. I want to introduce Kior to you. Don't know how many of you know about Kior. You've heard a lot this morning from all the speakers about our energy policy or lack of energy policy. And, you hear all kind of facts thrown around. I want to tell you what the state of Mississippi and Kior has done and is doing and will do in the state of Mississippi. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Now, Kior, if you don't know about Kior, Kior is we call ourselves a next generation renewable fuels company. We take any type of biomass, hardwood, softwoods, wood waste, ag waste, and we transform that into cellulosic or non-food based gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. Now, I can see on your faces, I don't quite see how that works, so let me see if I can talk to you about how we do that. Nature, when it's made crude oil or natural gas or coal, it captured or trapped organic matter, biomass, plant, trees under silt and sand. And over a very long period of time, as those deposits were pushed further and further into the Earth's crust, what's going on is nature is removing the oxygen out of that biomass and leaving a hydrocarbon, which is crude oil or natural gas. So it's very much a thermal reaction over a long period of time. We take that, we find that crude oil today, we produce it, we refine it, and we put it into the global transportation fuels market, which today is about $2 trillion a year market, so a very large market. So Kior's big idea was, would we be able to catalytically accelerate the natural process that nature takes in making crude oil? And the good news is we were able to develop a proprietary catalyst system that promotes that reaction. So if you think about it, we start with the same material that nature started with, biomass. We catalytically convert that biomass into crude oil. And literally, that takes a few seconds. It's a thermochemical reaction. We then take that renewable crude oil, and you can see a picture of our plant in Columbus, Mississippi, our cracker, as well as our upgrader there. We take that. We don't need a whole complex refinery. We just take one process out of the refinery because this is very light, low sulfur, very few minerals in oil. So we make gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. Same molecules as the gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel made from petroleum. So a very different approach from all the other renewable fuels that you hear about out there. So if you just think about it, we start with what nature started with. We end with gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel, same molecules as we make today in our refining process. Tell you about this product. It is a hydrocarbon. It's not an ethanol, an alcohol like ethanol. It's the same molecules as gasoline and diesel. Has the same energy density as petroleum-based gasoline and diesel. So it's not an ethanol, it's not a biodiesel. It truly is a hydrocarbon. And what this means is that this fuel, that's essentially the same molecules, is fully fungible or miscible with petroleum, gasoline, and diesel. So that means the Kior product, Kior gasoline or diesel, can be put into the liquid fuels infrastructure multiple places, whether that's pipelines or terminals or refineries or even service stations. So what I'm really saying, this is the world's first really drop-in fuel. And you hear about drop-in fuel? Well, I tell you, ethanol is not a drop-in fuel, and biodiesel is not a drop-in fuel. But this has the potential to truly be a drop-in fuel. Drops into your engines, and your engine doesn't know the difference between Kior gasoline or petroleum gasoline. This makes this product very appealing to the fuels industry. We've just finished construction, and we're currently starting up our first commercial plant in Columbus, Mississippi. Before we ever broke ground, we sold the plant out to Catchlight Energy, which is a joint venture between Chevron and Weyerhaeuser, FedEx, and Hunt Refining. Other unique thing about Kior's technology is it's flexible on the feedstock. Whether I'm talking about hardwoods or softwoods or logging residues, the tops and limbs of the trees that are left in the forest, whole tree thinnings, energy crops, switchgrass, miscanthus, or sorghum, or ag waste like sorghum, bagasse, corn stover. We cracked all these things and many more. Really doesn't matter. I don't know if you remember your high school science, but if you have molecular structures of lignin, cellulose, and hemicellulose, and biomass, these are molecular structures of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So they're fundamentally the same whether it's a plant or whether it's a tree, and that's why this technology can work on multiple feedstocks. Other benefit of renewables, this technology, if we look at all the renewables and look at the total life cycle greenhouse gas emissions, and this is what happens in the total life cycle from the time you burn it in your car and generate carbon CO2, carbon dioxide molecule, and that molecule comes all the way back and is recycled. What is the effect on the environment? And you see, Kior Products has the lowest effect, it's 84% reduction. It's better than any of the other renewable technologies that we have today. So that's a little bit about Kior. What I'd really like to talk about is the Kior and the Mississippi part, I call it a partnership. We've built a plant in Columbus. We've invested a little over $200 million. When this plant is up and operational, it will fuel 25,000 American cars with gasoline and diesel made in Mississippi. This is the world's first cellulosic or non-food based gasoline and diesel plant ever produced anywhere in the world. So when I was in Columbus yesterday and talking to the operators and people working there, they were saying, we're making history. We're making history in Columbus, Mississippi. We're making the world's first truly renewable, non-food based drop-in gasoline and diesel. And for me, that's very inspiring. There are a lot of benefits for this. If you build a chemical plant or a refinery, and if you know this, I don't know, the last refinery built in the United States, major refinery, was over 35 years ago. And since then, we've done nothing but shut them down one after another. This is a refinery. It's an oil production system. Think about it as an oil well, as well as a refinery, because wood chips come in and gasoline and diesel and jet fuel come out. But we've had over 400 people there working for over a year in Columbus. Another 100 plus people, or around 100 if you count contractors at the plant on a structural basis. We also have plans to build a plant 3 times the size in Natchez. That, of course, will generate a lot more construction jobs as well as a lot more jobs, structural jobs in the area. And that plant would fuel 75,000 cars continually. That's a pretty big number. I wanted to share with you a little bit, from Kior's perspective, why we would choose, or why did we choose Mississippi. And I see Governor Barber over there, and I want to thank him for the long relationship we've had with the state of Mississippi. But just give you my perspective of what a company like Kior and other companies will look for when they decide where to go. And I think I'm qualified to say this. I grew up in the South. I've spoken when we were deciding where to put the plant that we built at Columbus. I met with every governor in the South and every economic development group on the state level in the South. And Mississippi was by far the most progressive and the most professional. Let me just share with you, we're talking about, this is an energy summit, so we're talking about energy and the future and creating jobs. And what you've seen, Kior and the state of Mississippi and Kior have created jobs. And we are creating jobs, and we hope to create more and more jobs. But what we look for is first, is their feedstock availability. You're talking in the renewable space, and you're talking cellulosic or non-food, like using forestry products or waste wood or agricultural. Mississippi gets an A+, because if you look in the South, we're growing about 18% more wood each year than we're harvesting. But those numbers are even higher in parts of Mississippi than the average. So you have an abundance of raw material. Other thing that's very impressive about the state, your universities here, they're focused on developing renewable technology, focused on energy crops. How can we grow miscanthus and sorghums when there's a market for these? So, very progressive there. The other thing we think about is infrastructure. What are the logistics like? Do we have good roads? Do we have rail? Do we have marine? Very positive for the state. Also, is the infrastructure there for utilities? Can we get the power and so forth that we want? then, and probably could be even close to number one, is the people. You have the skill level, it's the work ethic of the people. And I can tell you, we hired people, we trained people. We could not be more pleased with the quality of the people, and the skill level, and the work ethic of the people in that area of Mississippi. Kellogg, Brown and Root built this plant for us, and like I said, we had 400 and something people there for the whole construction time. We built that plant in construction time of 13 months, and Kellogg, KBR tells us that's an all-time record, which I think speaks to the quality and the productivity of the Mississippi workforce. So, thank you. The other thing is your MBA. I said earlier, how professional and everything. I tell you, MDA, the Mississippi Development Authority, is best in class. I've not seen any other state with that level of professionalism and understanding of industry and what it takes to bring industry in. Your local economic groups, and we've talked to a lot of people in the state, is outstanding. They understand, well organized. When the industry comes in, we don't waste time. We have the right people. We're lined up. So, in our book, the advantage, of course, is Mississippi, and we're so proud to be here. We look at Kior, and it's potentially a game-changing technology. Think about it, it's the most flexible of any technology on the feedstock. The product it makes is gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, which there's a market anywhere in the world for that, $2 trillion kind of market. Starting in Mississippi, our next plan will be in Mississippi. One day we hope to roll this technology out globally. I think we should all be very proud that we had our start in Mississippi. And in summary, this is what I call a win-win. If you think about it, the community, the nation, the state, all of us, our grandchildren, what is Kior about? We're about what we've talked about all day. It's about creating jobs. We created jobs in Columbus, and we plan to do that in Natchez and in many other places. Homemade gasoline and diesel that made in Mississippi. It's so exciting to me to see a potentially game-changing technology that favors rural and agricultural-based areas. That, in today's world, is very, very rare. It's a sustainable feedstock. We only use non-food, so we don't get into the food versus fuel debate. The lowest carbon footprint of any technology that's out there. As I said, 84% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from petroleum. And not only that, our plant, once we start our plant, it runs itself on the energy that's coming in with the wood. So you think about this process, it's run totally on green power. It's making the greenest renewable energy that's out there. I think it's what the future should look like and I'm so excited to see all the young people with the interest in science. And Governor, you're being at Mississippi State, that's just very encouraging to us older people. Next, every gallon of gasoline and diesel that Kior makes in Columbus, Natchez, or other places, hopefully in Mississippi also, that's a gallon of fuel that we don't import from the Mideast or from Venezuela. So it supports our energy independence. So that's what I call a real win-win. So thank you very much.